Have you ever had this happen to you where you've watched a horror movie the first time through and it was good? It might have been scary, but it didn't like unsettle you or terrify you. But then on a subsequent rewatch, it absolutely unsettles you to your core. I have a movie on this list that did that to me, and yeah, it's gonna be I think a bit unexpected, so I'm excited. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome back to another recommendation list, this time going over 5 films that are actually scary, part 2. That's right, you guys embraced that first list so much, and I have to thank you for it, because I really enjoy talking about movies that are disturbing and gross, but really when it comes down to the ones that just unsettle me and I can actually praise and say are very great horror films, I kind of feel like this is like the yin to the yang of the disturbing side. You know, we got the disturbing side and then we have the ultimately very scary side of things. So this is really fun. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this, and I hope that you'll support this list just as much as the last. But before we get things started, I just wanted to thank the good folks who are popping up on screen here. Yes, these are our Patreon subscribers. We just launched it. It is only one tier at the moment, which is the welcome package tier. We are only asking for $3, and with that $3, you will get bonus content, uncut, extended episodes, polls, exclusive information, dates, times, interviews, all that good stuff. But really the main goal right now is to just hear from you guys, especially if you're going to be spending your own hard-earned money. We want to make sure that it's worth it to you. But don't worry, if you don't have the extra scratch or Patreon's not really your thing, you can always do the most by supporting us here on YouTube just by hitting that like button if you think we deserve it. And if you like the stuff we're making, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button and join the Splattercast community. But without further ado, let's hop into the list. And kicking things off at my number 5 pick, we have 1989's Pet Sematary. After tragedy strikes, a grieving father discovers an ancient burial ground behind his home with the power to raise the dead. Hey, what do you know? The question I asked at the beginning of the video, this is the movie. This is the one. Yes, Pet Sematary. How strange is that? Maybe for some of you, it's not all that strange. Because, yeah, this movie, it's one of those ones that I grew up hearing a lot about where people were like, yeah, this is scary. This is truly terrifying stuff. But I was always really hooked on the concept. And being a kid who loved animals and just the name Pet Sematary, it all just kind of conjures these horrible images in your brain of what monstrous zombie animal film is this going to be? Turns out it's not that at all. Now, this is truly a film that I saw at least once. I think the very first time I saw it, I know, was with my aunt and a bunch of my cousins in Georgia over a summer break. I had watched it. I know that my aunt's a big fan of the film, so it would make sense that I saw it there. But the only thing that I can think of is that maybe we watched it on television, because I watched this maybe 2 years later, and god damn, this thing terrified me. And honestly, I pretty much stayed away from this movie for a long time. I didn't revisit it until the remake was coming out, and I just got my curiosity piqued again. I'd have to really think about it, but I'm pretty sure this is an isolated incident in my life. But nonetheless, Pet Sematary certainly scared me as a young child, and yeah, even revisiting it, I have to admit, as a full-blown adult, I had a little bit of the butterflies in my stomach just rewatching this.
For letting us die.
Now, don't get me wrong, I completely understand that the 89 version of Pet Sematary here, it's a bit dated. It's got some wooden performances, and For the most part, the effects, I would say, hold up, but they do definitely pull back on a lot of what would have been the effects-heavy scenes from the book. And don't even get me started on the remake. Not a fan, didn't care for it. And the prequel, though, not terrible, but not something that I would go back and revisit all that often. No, for a long time, my terror with Pet Sematary lied specifically with the scenes in this movie. And those key sequences, I mean, most of them involve our boy Judd. Yes, Judd Crandall here. He is quite a storyteller.
Don't think about doing it, Lewis. The place gets hold of you. But the place is evil. Sometimes that is better.
Fred Gwynne is absolutely Judd Crandall through and through. His voice is what I hear when I'm reading the book. And yeah, he is the definitive iteration of this character, at least right now. But unfortunately for myself, he was also the bringer of the fear, because the flashback sequences in this movie really got to me. The one, it kind of starts with like a trickle, like a slow trickle, I noticed as I was taking notes as I was watching this time around. Because, you know, obviously we have the whole story with Spot and how he was brought back and everything and how he wasn't the same. And, you know, that kind of ends with him, you know, basically being scared by the thought of someone bringing a human back. And, you know, we're just left with that thread for a while. And then obviously we move on through the film. I gotta say, they hint at some of the Zelda stuff here. That was another huge element to me growing up. Absolutely mortified me. Zelda as a character, the performance, it's just absolutely gut-wrenching. I hated it. And I thought it was brilliant, though, to use like a male actor to have that uncanny valley, almost like, what am I looking at approach to that with all the heavy makeup and everything. It's very good. It's good at kind of like mind-fucking you. And that certainly left some scars, but oh man, what really set me over the edge was the Timmy Baterman story. Yeah, that was the one that, oh my God, I turned it off. I remember vividly, you know, Timmy Baterman's digging through the dirt just outside of somebody's house or his house, eating the worms, and I just said, you know what, I'm good. This movie's a lot scarier than I remember it being. But upon rewatch, I did have a fond nostalgia, because yes, even though those scenes don't disturb me or scare me as much as they did when I was younger, this is still one of those things that I was able to get past. It's kind of like my love for Leprechaun and Pennywise when it's Tim Curry's iteration. It's kind of those fears that I conquered, now I get to enjoy like the rest of you kind of thing, I guess. And coming in at my number 4 spot, we have 2017's Tigers Are Not Afraid. A dark fairy tale about a gang of 5 children trying to survive the horrific violence of the cartels and the ghosts created every day by the drug war. Luke had been hounding me for quite some time to watch this movie after he saw it, I think around probably early 2018. This was one that's, there was no reason for me not to have checked it out sooner, but I just took my time with it, kind of waited, forgot about it, you know, and it would come up every so often, and I'd always remember, gotta get back around to that. And I thought, hey, you know, I'm gonna try some new stuff, see if anything I can add to a kind of a scary or disturbing list sometime soon. This kind of checks both those boxes, and what do you know? I should take his advice more often. Tigers Are Not Afraid is a very, very nice blend of real world, terrifying, like horrific things going on. Everything from school shootings to children literally being shot in front of you, children having to kill people in front of you. That brings me to the ghosts in this movie. They are striking. There's a lot of sequences involving these supernatural entities, kind of like the description said, the ghosts of the cartel or the victims of the cartel. And it's one of those things that they really did an awesome job of melding that supernatural, damn near fantasy folklore edge, as well as just bring in the real world horrors. I mean, these are ghosts that aren't draped in sheets or blankets. These are ghosts that are draped in body bags. It's haunting, but then there are moments where it's beautiful. It's really, really some brilliant stuff, in my opinion, just visually all around. And when you get to the heart of this story, I mean, it's a gut-churning adventure, really. You follow this little girl, Estrella. She comes in and basically kind of hitches a ride with these boys throughout the city as they're trying to kind of just survive all of this horrible violence. And they're trying to get through, and they're being hunted because one of the boys, Shine, has stolen something from somebody who's very important when it comes to the cartel. That's really all I want to get into it, because I want to leave surprises for you. Obviously, like I said, be careful, because not only is the real world stuff, like I said, there's a kind of a scene towards the beginning with a school shooting. There's literal child death in this, so be prepared for that, and it's visceral. But beyond that, I think the supernatural stuff, the edge that's brought here, is really well done. It evokes like imagery that's very similar to Guillermo del Toro, so I was also excited to see that he was involved in helping shepherd this to, you know, a wider audience when it was released. In my book, if you are a fan of that, if you're a fan of del Toro, check this out. This is basically Pan's Labyrinth with drug cartels, and it's absolutely horrifying. And coming in at my number 3 pick, we have 2007's Wreck. A television reporter and cameraman follow emergency workers into a dark apartment building and are quickly locked inside with something terrifying. I'm kind of surprised that I don't see this movie popping up on so many people's lists when it comes to like super terrifying or actually scary, because I don't know if it's just been a while. I don't know if we're all sleeping on Wreck, but dude, this movie, I know it's a classic. I'm not saying we're sleeping on it in that sense, but the fact that more people aren't talking about just how goddamn terrifying this movie is, I'll never be able to wrap my head around that.
Dame la manita.
Ten cuidado.
Dame la manita. Dame
Pasa los ojos.
¿Sí?
Because I knew after I finished the first list that Wreck would certainly be popping up on the second one, because it's one that I was jostling with for the 5th spot. I really enjoy this movie, and I love the elements of found footage stripped down to the bare bones basics. This is essentially a found footage like documentary type deal, because it's technically starts out being filmed for a show, so it's kind of like behind the scenes documentary-esque stuff, and then it just kind of spirals into them hitching a ride with these firefighters, going to an incident, and then obviously being locked inside a building because they are quarantined. Speaking of quarantined, yes, this was remade into a film called Quarantine over here in the States. Saw that before I saw this. That was probably the best way to do it, because I appreciate this movie so much more seeing just how dull the other version was. Because although they're very similar in basically how they're executing the story and a lot of the same scares, Wreck just has this grime to it that makes it really feel like somebody just kind of found this tape, or this was seized evidence, or what have you. It's a very, very well done, very good at making you sit in the situation. I love how tension is built throughout arguments and conversation throughout this. We get segments where we're interviewing some of the people who live in the apartment building, so we get to know a little piece of everybody, and I love how all the pieces start to fit together, creating this horrifying chain of events. But really the main kicker, it's the one, it's everybody talks about it, and you know, it's not the only film to do this, but I think it is certainly one of the most effective, and of course that's the night vision scenes. I won't spoil exactly how or why, but something awful comes out once they get into this specific room in the apartment, and it's terrifying as the information is being unveiled and we're starting to learn exactly what's going on, why this is all happening, and how it's all happening here. We get introduced to this creature character, and it's haunting stuff. I really love these scenes. They're filled with so much tension, and the big thing about these scenes too is that the sound design, it's amazing. And when you listen to this movie for 2007 with huge headphones or just really nice stereo sound, like it just absolutely is layered with detail. So I got to give these filmmakers all the props in the world for this one, because I love Wreck. It still gets under my skin every time I watch it. It makes me feel gross. It's certainly not like the most disturbing movie in the world, but it's just one of those where it's like, yeah, definitely, you know, kind of feel like I need to wash my hands after a couple of scenes in this movie. And coming in at my number 2 spot, we have 2017's Terrified. When strange events occur in a neighborhood in Buenos Aires, a doctor specializing in the paranormal, her colleague, and an ex-police officer decide to investigate further. Damien Rugna is somebody that I have recently discovered, I guess, within the last couple of years, because 2023, his movie When Evil Lurks came out, absolutely fell in love with it. Had never seen Terrified. Watched it shortly after seeing When Evil Lurks, completely fell in love. This guy absolutely understands how to make possession, supernatural, exorcist kind of horrors scary.
Señor Carvajal, ¿me puede escuchar?
He actually knows how to make a modern supernatural horror film absolutely terrifying. But like, you know, this is something very rare for me. You know, I don't necessarily enjoy nor get all that freaked out by a lot of the supernatural stuff all that much. Obviously, with something like Tigers Are Not Afraid, that's tied to some real world issues going on. And, you know, that adds an extra level of, you know, kind of groundedness to the supernatural elements there. But for this one, it is purely entities, demons, and I love how this guy's brain works. I love how he comes up with these. He's not afraid to take a really wild out there concept for a ghost story and break down the science of it, but make it seem so a matter of fact, so passe of like everybody should know this, that it's just infectious, dude. Like, I love the way that Damien Rugna writes and develops worlds and stories, and especially his scares. There's more than a handful of scenes that stick out from Terrified. I am not going to dive into any major spoilers for this one. I'm going to leave that for you to discover, but I got to go with the opening scare, the one that really gets me. I mean, it starts everything off here, and it starts it with a bang, and I mean that literally. One of our main characters is alerted to a banging sound that he thinks is coming from his neighbor Walter, but he soon quickly finds out that it is unfortunately his girlfriend Clara, who is in the bathroom, suspended in midair, banging her head and face against the tile wall. And it just goes on and on and on. Every single hit, gets worse, and I absolutely was mortified by the desperation on her boyfriend's face as he tries to intervene in some way, but what the hell are you gonna do? You know, it just kind of slowly dawns on him as he's fighting there that, like, she's gone, bro. Like, she is very, very dead. It's a very vicious, very in-your-face, very traumatizing way to start a movie, and it certainly gets your blood pumping. And I think that Damien Rugna totally takes you on a tour of terror, because this is a very, very scary movie with lots of great paranormal beats, supernatural elements, things that are just developed as the story goes on and really makes you sit back and take a different approach to demonology and how scary it can be. Not just possession stuff, but reanimation stuff. There's a subplot involving a little boy. Oh my god, it is terrifying. I hate it. I hate looking at that thing. It's awful, and I really hope that you give this one a shot. And coming in at my number one spot, yes, one of the films that absolutely terrified me to my core, and still manages to this day, I have to go with 2005's The Descent. A caving expedition goes horribly wrong as the explorers become trapped and ultimately pursued by a strange breed of predators. I know I'm not alone in saying that The Descent is truly one of the scariest movies ever made. I say that with the utmost confidence because many of you included it in the comments of my previous video, as well as a bunch of other people over the years that we've been doing the channel have mentioned this to be extremely scary, and I have to agree. This is a movie that just terrifies me. It gives me the same exact feelings that I get whenever I have like a buildup or kind of like an experience with thalassophobia where I can't see below me. Tight spaces, caves, and what could be living or lurking in there, that just does about the same to me.
Just keep breathing.
What the fuck am I can't. I'm dying.
And funny enough, just connecting this dot while, talking here, the Borderlands also has a third act that really relies on caves and things like that, and that was my number one from the previous list. So you can see there's a trend. If it's deep water that I can't see below or deep dark caves, I tend to not do so well with those. But getting into the film itself, I mean, this thing starts with a bang. It's got one of the craziest openings ever, with these women going down the rafts, hanging out. You can see all these friends kind of getting together and just enjoying each other's company. They love to do all of these challenges and sports, and you even see one of them's family. Yes, our main character, her husband and daughter, they're driving back from the rapids. Basically, their car drifts into the other lane, and these little metal pipes or copper pipes shoot through the windows and just absolutely bust through her husband's skull and, unfortunately, her daughter's. And you know what I just realized? Every movie on this list features the death of a child. That's gotta mean something. That's not good. But even after starting off with such a big bang, we have to kind of pull things back a bit. And I think the reason this movie sticks with me so well is because it does the same thing that Jaws does, where it starts with a big pop, and then pretty much we spend the majority of the film, I would say, building our characters with little tiny scares here and there. But those are, in my opinion, the best kinds of monster movies and some of the best scary movies, is when we get to know the characters, we get to spend a lot of time with them. Some of them are more annoying than others, but for the most part, a rather big group of likable people here. And, there's a lot of interpersonal drama that also kind of floats the story along. For a minute there, you get so wrapped up in just this whole cheating scandal between our main character, Sarah's husband, and, of course, Juno, who's just the biggest piece of shit.
Except I put in a flight plan for Borum Caverns, and this isn't Borum Caverns, is it, Juno?
We're in the wrong fucking cave.
Where are we?
It hasn't got a name. It's a new system. I wanted us all to discover it. No one's ever been down here before.
that you kind of forget after a while that it's not just the fact that they're trapped in a cave system. It's not just the fact that they don't have anybody there on standby who even knows that they're there and they can't be rescued. It's also that all of this is going on, and then we throw on little cave goblins. And I don't know, man. I think Neil Marshall must have had a bug in him or was cooking at this point, because this wasn't long after Dog Soldiers. And this certainly, I think, even though I love Dog Soldiers to death, and it is probably my personal favorite of his, this is Neil Marshall's magnum opus. This movie's terrifying. These creatures in and of themselves as a design. I love that the lore that we don't necessarily get spelled out for us, but we kind of piece together that this is like a colony of people who kind of just regressed and went back into the caves. Maybe they moved into the caves a long, long time ago, but we really don't get much more than that. And I think that that's awesome, because that adds so much to the fear. It's just this random cave in the middle of nowhere where, yeah, there are these little golem creatures living below, and they are dragging in whatever decides to poke its head into the entrance. Not to mention that the set dressing in this movie is incredible. There is not a single frame in this that I don't believe that we are just deep in the bowels of our planet somewhere. It all really adds up in the perfect formula of terror. I can't say enough good things about The Descent. This is one that if you've been putting it off, if it's something that you have not watched or experienced, do yourself a favor, rent it, put it up on a streaming service, turn off all the lights, and sit back and just let yourself get transported. Now, if you can put it on with headphones, that's even better, because the sound design is also key here. Obviously, we're in caves, lots of echoes, lots of things that you can just barely hear, but maybe you heard. There's a lot of stuff that plays with your mind, and I think it's brilliant. And it certainly does hold a position, and has for a long time, as one of the most scary, terrifying, downright actually scary films alive. And there you have it, folks. There is my part 2 of films that are actually scary. Now, I know that this is a very subjective list, and I know that I'm going to get a ton of people commenting and saying these movies aren't scary. Happened on the last one as well, but just try your best to remember that these are very personal lists, and that these certainly are films that affect me. There's reasons and things I bring up in each of these of why they've affected me so greatly. Putting that all aside, though, I think that you can't go wrong by watching any of these movies. Even if something like Pet Sematary isn't going to scare you now, I highly recommend you check out the book, because even though the film terrified me as a child and doesn't do so much today, the book certainly sent shivers up my spine. But I've been talking for far too long in this video, so now it's your turn. I want to know in the comments section below, what are some films that you actually find scary? What's a movie that just gets under your skin? Whether it's horror, drama, thriller, I know that there's a ton of stuff across the board. Just like with disturbing movies, scary movies don't necessarily have to be monsters and slashers. But I think that's going to wrap it up here for me. Again, if you feel that I deserve it and you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. And if you want to stick around and join the Splattercast community, hit that subscribe button, as well as consider checking out our Patreon. See if there's any of that content on there that you guys like. And remember, you have the opportunity now to help us shape the Patreon into what it's going to be, so that way you're getting more bang for your buck. But until next time, I'm Dylan Newell, and remember, folks, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live.